Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm looking today at an excellent book from Ashgate Publications. It's this book here. It's a heavy book. It's called The Ashgate Research Companion to Migration Law, Theory and Policy. It's been written and edited by Satvinder S. Juss, who is at the School of Law, King's College, London. This is the book itself. It's very heavy. It runs to 700 odd pages. You can see the middle of the book there and what it looks like. You've got a lot of factual information in the footnotes, which is extremely helpful. There is, of course, as usual, a very detailed index, which is at the back of the book. You've also got at the front, obviously, a loose leaf, a dust cover, then you've got various pieces of information. You've got at the back a very important statement on what's actually in this book. It's part of the Law and Migration series, very, very current at the moment, in the middle of 2014. You can actually see from the contents at the front how it's actually structured into various parts. I'm only giving you a brief overview of the pictures of the what's actually in the book itself. There are in fact a number of other points, and what I would advise you to do is to look very carefully at the preface, which is there. So say you've got a useful way of doing it. There is no numbering in terms of paragraph numbering at the sides, but there are a lot of subheadings which are all extremely helpful. To say it's a heavy book and a very detailed one, and it's split into a whole series of articles. You can see, for instance, there's one particular article there. It's got a number actually in the top corner, and then it's got the name of the person who's written it. Now, we've written a review which is in the journals and on the web. This review's been written by myself and my wife Elizabeth Taylor. We've given it a title, A New Compilation of Current and Original Research on Migration Law. And the reason I'm addressing this subject is because I believe that migration law is going to be a very important issue for the next few years. I'm recording this just before the European elections in 2014, and we are expecting to see some quite interesting views coming forward on what the public's opinion is about the issue of migration. More about that in a minute, because we're going to look at what we mean by migration. What we say, though, is as follows in the review. We are all immigrants, as President Roosevelt reminded his radio listeners way back in the 1930s in the United States of America. Then as now, there were perceived problems with migrants and migration, even though one might argue that the whole of human history has been one long narrative of one migration after another, either en masse or individually. Time after time, various groups of people have emigrated to other places, either to seek a better life or to escape a worse one, more often than not as refugees. As we all know, we have a major issue with refugees and have had for a very long time. This book, which is a recent publication from Ashgate Publishing, offers an outstanding collection of essays which together present a state-of-the-art review of current research on key issues on migration, that's namely law, theory and policy worldwide, with a view to offering a range of perspectives on future developments in this continually expanding area of law. No less than 36 expert authors from almost a dozen different jurisdictions worldwide have contributed research papers to this volume, which under the editorship of Satvinder Juss complements Ashgate's well-known Law and Migration series, which was established in 2006. Dr. Juss, who teaches international refugee law and human rights law at King's College, London, is also a barrister at Lord Gray's Inn and a former human rights fellow of Harvard Law School, among a number of other achievements in his dazzling array of qualifications and practical experience. His doctorate is from Cambridge. The book's divided into 7 parts, which I've indicated earlier, the majority of which lean toward discussions centering on issues that primarily concern refugees. Certainly parts 1 and 2 focus on this topic, with part 3 examining the responsibility to protect displaced populations. Part 4 deals with emerging paradigms of legal protection, with discussions on human trafficking, asylum, child migration and forced displacement. Equally topical, and tragically so, are parts 5 and 6, which offer thoughtful contributions on such issues as detention and coercive treatment of asylum seekers. The final essay, a very pertinent article on the end of refugee camps, unquote, poses a lot of thorny questions relating to, for example, UN policy on what is referred to as the warehousing of refugees who all too often find themselves incarcerated in camps. In part 7, policy and practice relating to transnational migration, citizenship and the modern state are examined in detail. In this volume, which as I say is over 700, about 750 pages, there is much to contemplate and much to enlighten anyone involved in the often excruciatingly difficult human rights issues generated by migration. Very emotive issues, I'm sure most of you will know. As a practitioner and an academic, Just is well placed, we think, to offer a scholarly as well as a practical approach to this sensitive and often controversial area of law. With its thorough and copious footnoting and references, this book is therefore an important contribution to the subject. I think it's actually ideal to try to understand what we're facing at the present time in 2014. The publication date is cited at 2013, so it's a very topical publication. There it is again, just to remind you. It's a heavy book, but I've been very impressed. There are quite a few tables, for instance, in it, which you can see there, but you've got a very good idea of the amount of scholastic research that has gone into this, and I think it's something that anybody who's going to start talking about what I call migration law, because that's what this subject covers. And as I said right at the beginning, we are talking about immigration, emigration, movement of people, refugee status, and of course the free movement of people within the EU, which is again an important political issue at the top of our current national agenda as a member state of the EU here in the UK. So thank you all very much indeed for what you've produced here, which is a great contribution to the continuing debate. Thank you. Bye-bye.